In today's podcast, I'll be talking about how you build a US network from zero. So, this is basically how to network when you don't have any connections, when you don't know people, don't know who you are, and you're not from a family of physicians, and all the things that you think are reasons why you cannot network. I think the biggest reasons why IMGs cannot network or feel like we cannot network is because we obviously don't have a medical school with a large presence physically in the US. And that just makes it harder for us to be known right off the bat. We don't have the name to write off of. We don't have prior professors and deans and people that are already well recognized in the medical space to write off of. We don't easily find mentorship because we're not a part of a structured medical educational system. But today we're going to talk on how you can build a US network from zero. And specifically, I'll give you the cold emailing playbook, okay, for IMGs. All right, I have my notes right here and let's dive in. All right, so today I'm going to talk about networking as one of the single most important, most valuable tools in order to build relationship that can propagate you towards your dream residency, towards your dream program. All right. Most of us as IMGs get stuck because when we hear of networking, we think we have to be this big business executives or it's something that is outside of the reach for us. But that is so untrue. Okay. You can network right where you're at, even if you don't have any contacts. You don't need much. All you need is a Wi-Fi connection and your fingers and a laptop, which I know you have because you took step 1 or you're taking step 2 soon and so on. So I know this one student who had no US contacts. Absolutely not. She was in my program, the IMG Roadmap coaching program, and she matched into OBGYN. And here's exactly what she did. She decided to follow the guides of her mentors and what we were teaching her inside the IMG Roadmap to cold email to look for her US clinical experiences. And we all know the true value of US clinical experiences. It has multiple values. Okay, there are many layers to it. It's not just about checking off the box for your dream program. It's really about building relationship with people who can add value to your application. So they can provide you an LOR, they can call up and become a sponsor for you and introduce you to where they trained or other physicians who they have trained. They can introduce you to academics. They can take your research and put their name on it and make it even bigger. They can bring you in on their own projects that they're working on. But more importantly, you get to grow, you get to advance your career when you are in these clinical experiences. So she decided to get a good curated list of physicians who she had no prior relationship with and begin to target them as part of her networking process. She used Google to look up facilities, hospitals, academic centers, teaching hospitals in her dream specialty, and went through each site, looking through the names of the faculties, reading their bios, looking them up on PubMed, and looking for those whom she could identify with. Now, she is of a certain heritage, and so she decided to pick on the people that had similar heritage or background as she did and email them first before the other people. So that was her strategy. You don't have to follow it, but it ended up with her landing clinical experiences at 3 different hospitals in the United States in different states. She obviously had the funds and finances to go to these states for those experiences, but it added so much value to her application. She ended up matching in her dream specialty, OBGYN, in New York City, at a program separate from where she networked with, but because of her networking experiences, she got phenomenal support of her attendings, phenomenal support of the people that she learned under, to where it made a big difference for application across the country. So when it comes to networking, there are 5 things I want to address, and we're going to break this video down into 5 parts. The first part is the mindset shift that is necessary to have efficient networking. So when it comes to networking, think about it as you're just building a relationship, but you're building a professional relationship. So the key is to have connection first. Opportunity is secondary. And I know you're going into this because you want the opportunity, but let me just help you slow down for a second. This person that you're networking it with is not, they're not a project. They're not a tool. They're not someone that you're just going to use and dump, okay? They're a person. They're a human being like you and me. They have feelings, they have emotions, they have thoughts, they have things that drive them. It would be in your best interest to find a way to connect with people first, connect with those attendings first before seeking the opportunity that you're looking for. It will serve you well if you can create a connection with that human being, from human to human, mind to mind, brain to brain, doctor to doctor, woman to man to woman, person to person. Look at them with that lens first, or through that lens first. Don't just go after the opportunity and what you can gain from them and how you can use them or how they can help you. Think about them. What's valuable to them if you can find that information? And maybe you don't find out the personal values that they have or carry, but you find out the professional values, where their clinical interests lie, how those clinical interests tie in with your clinical interests. Because that could be the point of conversation in your opener, in your email. Part 2, you're going to have to find the right people to contact. Because if you're barking up the wrong tree, nobody reads it and you stay unread, right? But if you look through a program, maybe the program director is inundated with similar requests like what you were doing and sending to them. Maybe you can divert your interest towards the residents who have similar background as you. Maybe they're alumni of your medical school. Maybe you could start your networking there. And then they can inform you of who maybe you could contact outside of their body. The next thing you may want to do is look at other faculty. Maybe not the primary decision maker, but ancillary decision makers, because they may have more time. They may be more willing to go down this rabbit hole with you of what your clinical interests are or why you're reaching out to them. Okay? The third part of this is the cold email formula. All right. And the cold email formula is what I teach inside the IMG Roadmap as one of the tools to utilize in networking. And it's not news to you that you can cold email people as a way to network. Obviously, some of you are on my email list, and that's a cold email. You get on there by opting in, by saying you want to be a part of this, and you go to imgroadmap.com and you log in, or you sign up for a membership to become a member of our site, and you want to get more information. You want to get bi-weekly coaching, which is what I offer in a group setting inside imgroadmap.com. You may be doing all that. That's all just through cold emailing because we've never met, right? But cold emails are so vital for the IMG process. And I like to look at it like there is a formula, there's a method behind it. You need to know what to open up with. And I've talked about this before. We don't want to open up with, "Dear Dr. Loom, I'm an IMG or I'm an IMG and I'm reaching out to ask about this." The reason being, with the current climate that we're in, there's just so much bias with that acronym, okay? And truly, that's not fundamentally who you are. You are a student of a school that has a name. You are a graduate of a medical school that has a name. And maybe you were a graduate 3 years ago and you're practicing clinically in another country. So maybe you can introduce yourself as someone working in interested specialty in said country, right? Maybe you can introduce yourself in the role that you're actually performing in a clinical space, right? Maybe you can open up with that, but then you add in the connection piece I talked about in part 1, which is what is that person's interest and how can I link up with their interest, right? So this works, for example, when you contact a professional researcher, right? A PI on a project, someone who is doing clinical research in infectious diseases. Let's take that as an example. And they're an adult infectious disease physician, meaning that they did an internal medicine residency and then they went into ID. And now they're doing research on hantavirus, right? As an example. And you are reaching out to them because one, you're like, maybe I can get a rotation with them and then they are on faculty at this program and maybe I can try to audition there. And you have this thought process going on in your mind. However, that person is not drinking their coffee thinking about you and waiting for you to email them, right? That's not what's happening in their own brain. They're thinking about what their kid's going to have for lunch. Maybe if they're an involved parent, they're thinking about when they're going to pick their kid up. Maybe they're thinking about, I don't know, other things, their own projects, their next paper that's coming up. And then your email shows up on their desk. So maybe if you open up with a common clinical interest, so you're finding connection through clinical interest. So you find the connection first, which is, I've read this person's bio on the website, and now I can connect with them based on this one idea that they introduced themselves as, or they embodied in their introduction. And then I'm going to use that as part of my email to say, I am not an IMG, but I am a physician who is practicing medicine in Dubai, right? And maybe you include your specialty because it may be the same specialty as them. You're an internal medicine physician in Dubai, and you have a similar clinical interest as they do. So your opening line already allows you to be able to build connection with them. And that's why cold emailing can't be you just downloading a transcript from what do you call it? Or asking AI to write an email for you, because then there's no connection there. And this is your career. This is your life. This is going to be your livelihood. You need to put some thought into it, and you need to go beyond just a robot writing something for you. Okay? Let's put that out there. So you want to open up with a connection piece, and you want to introduce yourself and tie those two things in together so that your introduction makes sense to the reader of your email. Okay? So part one was the mindset shift, creating connection first and opportunity second. You're going to create connection based on what you learn about the person, which is part two. So you're finding the right person to contact. And because you've identified the right person based on maybe common interest, or being that you consider them a lower hanging fruit, maybe as a resident or someone that you have any common interest with. And then the third part is the cold email formula, which you're going to open that email with the concepts from part one and part two. Are you tracking with me? And if you're listening to this, take notes after the session or just read the show notes as well. Okay? So the next part of your cold email is you go from that connection and introduction portion quickly into why you are emailing them. Okay? And you want to always end your email with an open-ended question. I usually say, you would not walk into my office and just badge in right the front door and start asking me for things. If you wouldn't do that and we know each other virtually, why would you do that in an email? You can't just read off your CV and read off your accomplishments and ask them to give you a rotation. You can't demand in someone's email. Treat it with the same level of courtesy, connection, and mindset that you would with an in-person interaction. So I usually say you want to ease into your ask, and maybe an easy first ask is for permission to continue to reach out to them. Can I ask you a series of questions? Can I ask you a series of questions regarding my residency application or regarding my interest in internal medicine? Can I ask you about potentially working with you? Can I, whatever you fill in the question with, and you put a question mark at the end before you hit send. And the reason is, if that person is a busy professional and they're hopping between rounds in the clinic and the school, the daycare for their kids, and they're thinking about their grocery list and their to-do list and their spouse's concerns that they have to address, you may not be as important to them in that moment. But the fact that you asked a question allows them to cognitively stop what they're doing and just answer your question. And it could be yes, shoot, or yes, sure, ask me a question. And then you have been invited into their vault. You've been invited into their world, and then you can follow through with your second and third email. Because you don't want to just send one email and done. It's not one and done. This is about building connections, about building relationship, and sometimes that thing takes time to build. Okay. Part four, because this is just the overview of building your network from zero, is you're going to make sure that you are a member of the organization that represents your specialty in the US. I cannot overstress that because it is so important. Actually, I can't, so I should stress it. It's so important that you know what that organization is and that you are a member there, whether it's internationally or locally. The key is being a member would give you firsthand information that's not available on the internet always. You'll be on their listserv. They'll communicate with you. They'll tell you what's happening, what's new. And when they have academic sessions for aspiring residents, you will be the first to know. And that would be the first best place, because the people that you'll meet there are the people interested in medical education. And those are the people that you actually want to mentor you and the people that you actually want to work with. You don't want to force someone who doesn't want to have medical students around to have a medical student around. You want the person who's already open to the idea, who's already allowing med students to work with them, to be the person that you reach out to. And then number 5 is you want to keep your relationship growing. So you want to find a way to engage that person. And I usually say the best way you can do that is to give back to that person. And giving back doesn't have to be always monetarily. It can also be giving back interest. It could be giving back work. It could be giving back clinical time. So you can ask this potential mentor if they have any clinical projects that they're working on. And then you can ask them how you can come into that and help them with that project. Because one, that could give you an experience maybe in research, right? That you could work on a QI project with them, or it can give a scholarly activity on a QI project with them, or it could be something where you're collecting data for their research. And then by the time you know it, you are learning about research, working alongside of them, and you're building this long-term relationship. And that is why networking is time intensive and labor intensive. But you are not alone in this process. And sometimes the most difficult part is believing in yourself enough to just initiate a networking process, which is why I like to introduce you to my IMG Roadmap membership program. Because in that program, I'll be teaching you, hand-holding you as we walk through your networking process in a group setting, in a cohort setting. So you'll be there with your other friends, and not friends, but the cohort of physicians and students who are applying into residency just like you, learning as we go together, networking together so that you're not alone, so that when you get rejected, which you will, you don't have to deal with that rejection by yourself, but you have a community of students, like-minded individuals, and myself as your coach to guide you on how to navigate that so that it doesn't get to define who you are. It doesn't get to define your outcomes, both academically or even clinically, but that we can help you pivot when those negative rejections do happen. But more importantly, I can show you and I can work with you on the mindset shift that needs to happen and how you can project that in your emails and how you can write these emails, how you can connect to people and create long-lasting professional connections that go beyond just taking away and wanting more opportunities to safeguard for yourself. So, in summary, the network that you build will make your application go further. So choose wisely. And in the beginning, you may find yourself choosing through several different options, but that's the whole point. If we knew what the result was, what the outcome was, then we would just do that, right? But because we don't know, we have to set our eggs in many baskets at first, and then we begin to narrow it down as time goes. So here's your call to action. I'm inviting you to come join us inside the IMG Roadmap membership. You just go to imgroadmap.com, and right there you can join the membership starting today. In the membership, you get cohort group coaching every other Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with me. So that's twice a month. And then in addition to that, you'll have access to my new AI tool that I'm working on, which is going to give you quick responses based on material that I've taught inside the IMG Roadmap for 10 plus years. Okay, so you'll be able to ask it in a chat GPT style and get a quick response. And this will be helpful for the late nights when obviously we're not in a coaching environment, but you can continue to get coaching through that platform. So that is just a little bit about what happens inside there, but there's a lot more than that. There's connection, there's community, there's growth, and there's learning from other people walking through the same pathway as you are. So I invite you right now, go to imgroadmap.com or click down below. And if you're listening on YouTube or watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, do subscribe so that we can send you more of this type of networking information that really moves the needle for an IMG who has zero resources, zero network, but is never really truly alone. I'm here to support your IMG journey, so do reach out with any questions and concerns that you may have, and I can't wait to serve you in that capacity. Bye for now. I'll see you in the next episode.